It started at around $40 then $80 and has now increased to about $200 per month. I don't want to see what the next one will say. 2 weeks ago I called the water company to let them know about it once again. There is a lady there who always answers the phone with the fakest, "Thank you for calling," mini speech ever, and I think she knows who I am. She always tells me that a tech will be coming to my house to check out the water meter and let me know if it's consistent with her records. Nobody ever comes to check. Now I live with my aging mother and we're not in the position to be throwing money away. Mom said that someone was stealing the water, but the days where a neighbor could hook up a hose to the side of the house are long gone. She insisted that I show up in person to get things back in order, so I did. What was left to try? A plumber had already charged us $120 to tell us that our house had no leaks from within our property, that we had to check with the water company itself. Thick glasses and lipstick-stained yellow teeth. That's what Jackie from the think of her calling thing looked like. "Hi, how may I help you?" she said, not even faking a smile this time. She knew who I was, obviously. I doubt anyone else had called the office more than me in the past 2 or 3 months, since I started noticing the price hike. "We'll get a tech out there tomorrow." "At what time are you available?" I politely said that no text ever showed up and if I could please speak with a supervisor. Sighing a little bit, she looked at her agenda and called someone named Jonathan. The van was apparently an area supervisor. She handed me the phone. I explained my situation and then apologetically he said that he would show up within an hour, even though I was suspicious that he would actually show up. I was glad I listened to my mom. We might actually get done. This time around, as I was pulling into my driveway, I noticed a big water truck, the one that used to come by with an order to cut off my water for not paying my bills, several times. "Is this Martha's residence?" "Yes," I said. "Come on in." He said he needed to check out the water meter and make a visual confirmation of it. He went out to the backyard and looked over the fence to the neighbor's house. "That's not my yard," I said. He chuckled and told me that he knew that, but that my water meter was actually located on the backyard of the house behind us. I'm not sure how that stuff works and he noticed. So he explained some things about my section of the street and connections that they were made back in the 70s. I still didn't understand but just needed the water meter checked and my bill adjusted. Utilities yelled out toward the house as he stretched some type of device. "I guess you read these things with radio signals now or something like that, but you have to get close." Utilities yelled out again but nobody peeked out the window or anything. I didn't see anybody or the lights on in that house for months, if not, maybe for even over a year. The last time I talked to them was about 2 years ago when they asked if I wanted to split the costs over new fence to separate our yards. We still have the old one and it's falling apart, but they installed a nice one by the one right next to ours. Jonathan explained that he couldn't jump the fence because he needed permission from the owner, but that he would visit the house and try to get permission. He said he would leave them a notice if there was no answer and that he would call me later. Here we go again, I thought. About 20 minutes later I got a call from him telling me that he couldn't find anybody at that house and that he would have to check next week. How was it about to wait a week? Jonathan was upset over the whole thing and pushed for me to go that evening to try to talk to the neighbor. Maybe they would be home from work. That was for reasoning. So around 8 p.m. I walked around the block to get to their house trying to spot it by the big tree that they have, since I had never seen the neighbor's house from the front. All of the lights were off but I went for the doorbell. It didn't work. I knocked and just as I did, the sound startled me. It was a crying whisper. "Help me, please," the fading voice said in the distance. A woman it sounded like. I knocked again and I heard the same thing, only louder. "Hello?" I yelled. Silence. I thought about the right thing to do and after taking a deep breath I went for the doorknob. It opened easily and the door swung open slowly toward the inside. "Hello? Help me, please." I heard full the darkness. I stared inside and tried to make out what was in the living room area. Bare walls, no furniture. Should I step inside? I remember thinking, please. I heard again. Then chills ran down my back as I contemplated stepping in there. As I leaned my head inside, a loud, "Hey!" sounded from behind me. An old bald man came running up to me. "What do you think you're doing, Maggie? Call the cops." They could see the other neighbors stepping out of their homes, the porch lights with the light sensors turning on. I tried to explain myself but there was no use. There was no way this man was going to listen to me. I just explained myself to the police, I thought. I was still thinking about the person inside the house and figure that the police might, actually be able to help. They arrived about 10 minutes after that. While I just sat on the porch, people were staring at the commotion that this other guy was causing. Great, another set of red and blue flashing lights arriving in down the block. Even more people outside. The man explained to the police what he saw and the officer pulled me aside to let me give my side of the story. I told him that there was somebody inside and that she asked for help. The look he gave me was odd, like a mix between confused and amazed. He called 2 other officers over and one of them with a tablet computer confirming a time and date with the officer I was talking to. He announced themselves and stepped in. 2 other officers arrived and also followed. It must have been about an hour later by this time, but a police van arrived with a photographer and another man. They asked me to stay and give my witness account, but I didn't know what else to say. Except for what happened. The whole street was sealed off by this time as more and more trucks and police detectives arrived. I was allowed to leave, but they didn't tell me anything about what was going on. Their operation went deep into the night. The comment I knew because of the floodlights is set up in our backyards with these loud generators. At around 2 in the morning, through the chatter and the sounds of the motors, I heard a dog barking. The chatter got louder and louder for about half an hour until it all went quiet. I couldn't see much from my window. The next morning the detectives were still working, the stretcher by the side of the neighbor's house and right next to it the distinct image of a black body bag. It was thanks to the 3rd interview with the detectives that I finally got the answer I wanted. The voice I heard, the person asking for help, was dismissed by the interviewers. They explained about the blood-stained bathroom walls they found. They asked me to think back about half a year or so if I had noticed anything suspicious. We all know how these stories go sometimes, so I made it very clear that all I wanted was to clear up the deal with the water bill. They asked to see my records and then they told me the rest. A hard object had pierced the pipe at the joint that caused the water to leak. A woman had been murdered in the house behind me. They had found her body buried in the backyard. With this, 10 yards away from my window on the other side of the fence, her body curled up next to the garden area with the roses, the area with the water line that runs to my house. Though my water bill got fixed, I still hear the cries for help, late into the night. Help me. The next story. I don't know who to tell you about the thing I saw. My parents made fun of me the last time I screamed in the middle of the night. Even though I'm sure they care about my safety and everything that parents do, I don't think I can bring this up again because my parents really don't seem to want to talk about this. It started with mild laughter, which I thought was just a part of my dreams until one time I woke up in the middle of the night because I forgot to turn off my notifications. I just kinda laid there on my bed staring at the empty space between the bed and the blanket. It was as clear as you can imagine, the sound of a child laughing, though it sounded like it came from far away in terms of volume. I knew it was nearby because it was so clear. I froze instantly until I heard it again, then I screamed to my lungs out. That's when my parents came rushing in and then they laughed at the situation and asked me to sleep with the light on if I had trouble. I think having the light on would have made me even more paranoid, so I turned it off and ran to my bed and on top of the tangled blanket to make everything worse. I kicked the round until I finally fixed it and turned on my phone to watch something on YouTube. I just wanted to fall asleep, hidden in my blanket cocoon. In between my dreams I could hear the distinct laughter of a kid, though a bit deeper, but still undeniably a child. As the days went on I started becoming more and more paranoid over the laughter until, one day, I watched a video that for some reason got me very motivated to quote-unquote face my fears. I didn't want to live being afraid of something so dumb. I guess I sounded a little over-dramatically there, but you get my point. It was 3 in the morning when I woke up. I grabbed my cold phone from the nightstand and flicked on the screen. I heard the laughter again. All right Diane, it's time to face your fear, I told myself. All of my friends know that I talk to myself sometimes. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. I left it of the blanket through the corner of my room. There was nothing. I put my head back on the pillow and the light faced down onto the bed when I heard the laughter. Again, laughter this time. I was scared but nothing prepared me for what came next. my attempt to get myself under the blanket again. I grabbed my phone as the light scanned the room for a brief second. Right by the bin where I put my dirty clothes was a girl with an unnaturally white green and dark hair staring at me. I screamed again, muffled by my blanket until I couldn't scream anymore. And froze in silence. I heard my dad coming to the room. He asked from afar if I was okay, but he didn't turn on the lights. I saw it, I said as I flashed the light toward my dad and startled him. He was bent over the bin of dirty clothes. He ran towards the light switch and flicked it on, stopping to stare back at the bin of clothes and then back at me. I could tell he was confused as he sat on the edge of my bed asking what I had seen. He listened to my description in silence until he asked me to get my blanket and go to sleep with my mother instead. Ever since that night things have quieted down and I have only heard the laughter a couple of times, these times even quieter. Even though Dad and I haven't talked about the incident, I know what I saw and he knows what he saw as well. The third short story, it's coming up right after this. Stay with me. It takes some serious willpower for me to go into my bank statements and go through all the transactions, to check subscriptions and what I'm overpaying for, marketing services, fitness apps and even newspaper websites that I don't even visit anymore. That's why I'm a huge fan of Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. I want you to answer this honestly. How much are you spending on subscriptions? If you set around $80 a month, I'll tell you, that's what most people say. But really the number is closer to $200, and I get it, it's easy to lose track, but please check them because they add up, so stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and manage your money the easy way. Go to rocketmoney.com/scarystory. That's rocketmoney.com/scarystory. rocketmoney.com/scarystory. Do you think of a dispatch? You might be thinking of something cool like those people who answer 911 calls and send ambulances and police officers. My job is not like that. My city, I'm a part of a company that has a 24/7 customer service representative thing. For a plumbing service. Some of these things are serious, like leaks and entire apartment floors flooding knee-high. But others are just embarrassing calls from people around town freaking out for them, talking the toilet. The choice of words as they describe what they see is hilarious to listen to. Fortunately, I'm not the one doing the visits. I just take the calls and take care of the billing, payments and other stuff like that. When I get a call, I can tell them what to do. Things like shut off the water line and tell them that a professional will be with them soon, depending on the urgency of the phone call. The entire night staff is made up of 4 people and we take turns with the weekends and everything since they are the busiest. We were discussing the upcoming holiday weekend when suddenly 2 of them started telling me about a strange call they had gotten, a ghost call. They were having their usual burgers from the place across the street waiting for the phone to ring. Literally when it did, the first one answered it and greeted the potential client. Blah blah blah, how can I help you? He described what he thought were whispers on the other end of the line and he put the call on speakerphone. He then heard a grunt and the person hung up. I think it was one of the weirdos that make the calls to food labels and respond to magazine writers over email with nothing to do in the middle of the night. Someone playing a prank on us? I don't know. We wouldn't get pranks often and we had clear instructions on how to block those types of callers. That would stop the problem for a little while. Yeah, we were bored at times so we would get fascinated by things like these. Anything was a good story at 2 or 3 in the morning as we were waiting for the phone to ring. The weekends, like I said, were another story. No, the first guy said, trying to make a story interesting. It happened again. Another guy added, yeah, it was weird. It sounded like a ghost. What the heck does a ghost sound like anyway? I wondered to myself. I simply laughed and reached for the stale French fry that was still on the desk. Then it was my turn to take the weekend calls with another girl and things would be normal, for a little bit. She was usually pretty calm and she had been working there for a long time so she knew how to solve some of the bigger stuff. I wouldn't even think of telling her about the strange phone calls the others were talking about. She was one of those people that take their job very seriously, you know what I mean, but still she was cool to work with. But anyway, we both were sitting at her desks while I was filling out some of the end of the month reports and she was working on some other task when my phone rang. I said the welcome message and asked how we could help them. That's when I heard the faint voice of a young child on the other end. "Hi, hello," she said, but then hesitated on what to say next. Okay, sorry, so hello, what is wrong? Thank you," the little boy said and hung up. I kept the phone against my ear for a little bit before Gabby, the coworker, asked if I was all right. I explained to her the phone call, giving her the address and everything, and she wrote it down. I think it was a habit to write down addresses as soon as we heard them. "Did you send the van?" she asked, knowing very well that I hadn't. She started dialing the driver's phone number, looking to me and asking, "But what service do they need?" It was just about to answer when she started giving the address to a driver who was near that area, asking him to be there and that she would get back to him with the contact information. Gabby hung up and then looked over to me. I told her it was a little girl who called and that it might have been a prank. She was about to call back the driver when her desk phone started ringing. It was a driver. It was loud and sounded stressed out. Gabby took a few notes and then stood up to call the supervisor. She told me that the driver had been greeted by a child with one of our magnets, the ones that stick on your fridge, and had her phone number, was held tightly in her hands. She opened the door and pointed to her with the stairs. He glanced over to it and rushed up to a woman who had fallen down the stairs and was unconscious. He reached for his phone and called 911 and then ran back to his truck to get the first aid kit, and he got it as he listened for instructions. He hung up and called the office. He said he was looking for the woman's daughter so that he could report back once he helped out with the incident report. Fortunately, the woman recovered and she gave us a visit once she got the full version of how she was found by the emergency service workers. That's where we got to talking about the strange occurrence. The little girl had gotten her phone number from the magnet that has the information on the "for emergencies only" line. It was made for plumbing emergencies. Her mom had kept the list of numbers and a note with her home address stuck on the refrigerator door, and even though the description of the plumber and the tone of her sound recording matched the description of the woman's daughter, it was tough to accept that as is. You see, the woman's daughter had died several months before.